In this video, I'm going to demo how Apromore can be used to drive the replatforming of a business process from a legacy system into Salesforce. As an example, we are going to use a dispute management process end-to-end, from the time the dispute request is received to the time the chargeback is initiated or the credit is rolled back. Let me open this dataset that originates from 5 different systems. As I reverse engineer the process with Apromore, I will see what's actually going on. And as usual, if I explode the arcs, I will see that in reality this process is actually quite complex. It refers to a period of about 1.8 years, and it includes about 15,000 different dispute requests, following nearly 5,000 different pathways. So clearly, the assist is very complex. Now the idea is to seek opportunities for transforming this process. Let me bring the arcs back to 10% so that we can bring this back to a manageable size. Now, as I was saying, this process spans 5 different systems. So data has been collected from a legacy CRM, a Thoca and Mastercom, which are a couple of systems provided by MasterCard, a core dispute management system, and a knowledge base. If I switch to the stage view, I'll see that the process consists of 3 key stages: request intake, case creation, and case fulfillment. As I overlay the duration statistics, and we see that case fulfillment is definitely the longest activity, taking about 1.8 weeks, and there is also a very long waiting time of more than 4 weeks before we can actually execute case fulfillment. That altogether affects the end-to-end journey of our customers, because we see that on average it takes 1.66 months to process a dispute request from beginning to end. And we want to drop down that time to within 24 hours to remain competitive. As I drill into case fulfillment and switch back to the activity perspective, I can actually see what's going on this stage of the process. And I see that I have a bottleneck of about 3 days after the provisional credit has been issued, and then further bottlenecks downstream in this process. Specifically, I also have a couple of very long activities, the one related to interacting with the Thoca, and the one related to initiating the chargeback on the Mastercom system. So if I get inside these activities and I switch to the role perspective, I'll be able to see who performs these activities, and in both cases it is actually a case officer. In fact, the case officer is actually the overutilized role in this process. So let me roll back to the initial view. Now what I want to do is to take the part of this process that refers to case fulfillment, so from the opening of the case to its closing, and simulate its replatforming in Financial Services Cloud. Specifically, I'm going to generate the digital twin from the end-to-end process, so not only considering case fulfillment, but also intake and creation, because I want to assess what the impact of the replatforming of case fulfillment is going to have on the end-to-end customer journey. I will take specifically a pre-built module in Process Studio, plug it into my simulation model, and test it with the statistics specific of this organization: the arrival rate, the branching probabilities, the FTEs, and so on. Let's do that. I'll quickly switch this model into a BPMN view, and that is the starting point for discovering the digital twin. So now I'm asking Apromore to save this BPMN model into the user workspace. And in doing so, I'm asking Apromore to automatically discover all the simulation parameters that will act as levers for me to play with in order to simulate different conditions and different changes in this process. So now I take that model that has just been generated and I open it with the editor of Apromore. So here I can make changes both to the structure of this process. I could add, remove tasks, resequentialize or parallelize them, or totally change the structure of this process, as I'm going to do in this case by replacing the case fulfillment stage with the pre-built module in Process Studio. But I can also make changes to the simulation parameters, such as the arrival rate, the FTEs of the various resources, like I have 11 case officers, their cost, the duration of the tasks, the branching probabilities, and so on. So what I did was to create a new version of this model that I called What If Number 1, where I'm contemplating to replace case fulfillment with a pre-built case fulfillment module of Process Studio that I have highlighted in green in this scenario. So you see now that the tasks that were assigned to users, such as case officer, have remained the same. So if I select open case, I can see that it lasts about 59 minutes as per the assist model. But when I look to the other tasks like generate rejection email for customer, which are now meant to be automatically performed by FSC, I'll see that these take a handful of seconds, or like in the case of rejection notifications, they are actually instantaneous. So now this case fulfillment stage is largely automated. There are only a handful of activities that are performed by users. Let me simulate the all end-to-end process to assess what the impact of this replatforming is going to be on the end-to-end customer journey. As I launch the simulation, Apromore simulates the what-if scenario and generates an event log that captures the data related to that scenario. I can now take that event log and compare it to my assist event log as a baseline. So I select the assist, the what if, and I launch a dashboard on the fly, asking Apromore to compare the two scenarios next to each other. In blue, I have the assist that, as you would recall, would take about 1.5 months to handle a dispute end-to-end. Whereas in red, I have the what-if scenario, where it's now taking 1.2 days end-to-end. So I've managed to dramatically reduce the cycle time of this process. I'm not yet hitting my target of completing the handling of a dispute within 24 hours, but I'm getting very close to that. I see that I also have an important improvement on my cost, from $1,500 to less than $1,000 to run a dispute end-to-end. And I have also impacted positively on my resource utilization. The case officer was fully saturated at 100% utilization. They were indeed the bottleneck role in this process. I've now dropped it in the what-if scenario to 20%. However, as I can now handle disputes in a significantly shorter time, I have now increased the utilization of the customer relationship executive, and likewise from the documentation specialist, from 39 to 93%. So the activities performed by the documentation specialist now could be my next target to look into for improvement opportunities in order to reduce the end-to-end duration below 24 hours. As a last step, I can now take the part of this process that I'm supposed to replatform in FSC and ask Apromore to automatically generate the scaffolding of that process in flow orchestration. So then I can import it in my Salesforce environment and automate it. So I have created in a separate BPMN file that model that captures the process related to the case fulfillment stage of this dispute management process. I can now save the flow metadata out of this BPMN diagram, ready to be imported in flow. Okay, so now I access my Salesforce org and I look for my case fulfillment process. And as I open it, I will see the scaffolding of the orchestration ready to be implemented. So each BPMN task has been converted into a step inside this orchestration. An interactive step like open case or reject case capture a user task in BPMN, whereas a service task like calculate provisional credit has been turned into a background step. As this orchestration is implemented and executed, it will start producing run logs that can be fed back into Apromore to monitor the performance of this process and check how close it is to the expectations that we set as simulation time.